and welcome to the Art of Abundance podcast. I'm so very happy you're here, and I'm super excited to introduce you to my guest, Kendra Wright. Welcome, Kendra.
I am super excited to be here. It's great to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. I heard you speak at the World Domination Summit in August in Portland, and you touched me. So it's so cool to be able to have you here and have this conversation, because some of the things, everything actually that you shared in your talk was deeply inspiring. I couldn't wait to run into you magically at the conference later. And that's exactly what happened. And that led to our conversation today. So I want to tell everyone just a little more about you, but I'd love it if you also can help us understand your backstory and more about what you do. But Kendra is a blogger, writer, speaker, and location-independent entrepreneur. Since creating the Year of Fear project in 2013, she's completed over 700 self-assigned comfort zone challenges. She specializes in teaching others how to break through fear, uncertainty, productivity slumps, and create better work-life balance, and abandoning the inner hustle that we all want to get rid of. So
I would say it's more of like creating more work-life balance without abandoning your inner hustle. So like,
okay,
a total badass without burning yourself out.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.
By the way, am I allowed to use curse words?
Yes, you can.
Okay, because I sometimes get a little sassy, so.
It's part of your charm, so please be very comfortable here with my audience. And I would love it if you could talk just a little more about just the awesomeness that I have fallen in love with.
Oh, thank you so much. That's an amazing compliment, and I really appreciate it. And it's also really cool to connect again. We met in Portland at the World Domination Summit, and I was speaking there. A big thing that I speak and write and talk a lot about is facing fear. So as you mentioned, a few years ago, I created this project called the Year of Fear. And essentially what this project was is it was never intended to be a movement, a business, a lifestyle, any of those things. It was simply just an experiment for me. And the project was really simple. It was, every day I did something new, something different, or something outside of my comfort zone for an entire year straight. Now, most people hear that and they say, well, that's crazy in a year. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the really amazing thing about watching, it's almost like a bank balance, like compound interest. Like when you start, consciously expanding your comfort zone in little ways every day, it adds up over time. So, any comfort zone expansion is amazing, but doing it over time, what I really found and what I really love about talking about a comfort zone is it's one of the only skills that you can develop that really reaches every area of your life. There's very few skills that bridge all gaps. So, expanding your comfort zone can affect your relationships. It can affect how you talk to people. It can affect who you go after, who you date, who you don't date. It can affect your career. I know for me, like one of my earlier comfort zone challenges when I was still working as an employee was asking for a raise. That was really uncomfortable for me. Just day-to-day interactions with other employees and being like, yeah, actually I have this idea. Whereas a lot of people might just sit back in their seat and, not give a suggestion. Also just out in public, or out at events. One thing that's new for me that I didn't ever used to do is if someone ever asks for like a volunteer, doesn't matter what it is, I always go. Like I'm always like, yes, pick me. And inside I could be like, oh my God, no. But it's a very interesting and rewarding practice. And so I talk a lot about that. I also tend to really cover a lot of like being authentic and how to, be sassy in yourself and still be loving. And also like time is really, really important to me. So I talk a lot about, I'm a recovering workaholic. So how do you create time for living an epic, awesome, memorable life and also still kick ass in your career? And I thought it kind of had to be like one or the other. And I'm proud to say that I proved myself wrong. So those are a few of the topics I talk about, but it's just kind of all in like the personal development world in more of an unconventional way. And I also say that a lot of the tactics and strategies and inspiration that I share is actionable inspiration. I feel that a lot of inspiration is just like raws you up, but then you're like, well, what the hell do I do next? So like, I know I need to like fix my relationships and you say these 3 things, but like, okay, what does it actually look like in real life with my partner who's like sitting across from me and won't talk to me? Like, what do I say? So I try to be very actionable. And that probably ties in for my background as an entrepreneur, being very action oriented. So
When did you start the entrepreneur journey?
It's funny because I feel like I've always made a horrible employee. And I say that really ironically, because I was actually a badass employee, but I was always like, I can do this better. Like, I would get so good at my job that I would just be like, I'm burnt. I don't like this. Like, this isn't fun. And I think we can do it better this way. And so I was like a rock star employee, but I was always like kind of a rebel. I feel that most entrepreneurial people know it in the like depths of their gut that like, yeah, I'm supposed to be signing, the front of the check and not the back of the check. So I think that I've always kind of been that way a little bit, but I've been full-time consulting in my own marketing business for about a year. And then before that, I did consulting on the side for a few years and was still working kind of in entrepreneurship. I was running an online business for someone who worked teaching, people how to grow and scale their online businesses. So I did that for a few years. And so I've been really kind of involved in entrepreneurship for about 3 years, like heavily. But it's kind of always been like this quiet, dormant giant within me, I think, for most of my life.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I kind of think I did a little bit of what you're talking about. My parents were entrepreneurs, and I always found jobs that allowed me to have a ton of autonomy and a ton of freedom to call the shots and figure out like new product development or new business opportunities, even in the corporate. I worked for Wells Fargo for many years. I was always the one finding the jobs that allowed me to be more like an entrepreneur as opposed to someone who was just, collecting the pay. And it's just, I wanted that so badly, but I was also pretty scared about going out on my own because my parents did not have a lot of success in entrepreneurship. They lost a lot of money. They would run the business into the ground. And it gave me a lot of fear that no matter how good I was still probably going to fail. So I had to get over that before I started my business.
Do you ever get over that though? I mean, for me, I have a successful business and every day I'm still like, is this thing going to freaking be working next week? I don't know. Like, we're going to be able to pay the rent, it's like the rent. I mean, obviously I do well, but, for me, I have a totally different backstory. So I grew up in a family that was not entrepreneurial, like absolute opposite of that. And the one thing I will say too is there's nothing wrong with not being entrepreneurial. You can be what's called an entrepreneur, which is being entrepreneurial inside of the company that you work for. And it's okay. I think sometimes people really like make entrepreneurship sexy, and I love it, but it's not the easiest thing. And I think that, for me, I grew up in like really poor, like poor is probably putting it politely. I mean, we were pretty much poverty. And so for me, how that affected my inner talk and my inner confidence when it came to entrepreneurship is I grew up my entire life knowing that I had no fallback system. So if I couldn't pay the rent, I didn't have anybody to call because, my family is struggling to pay the rent too. So that made, taking the leap into entrepreneurship really like extra, double, triple, quadruple scary for me. Right. And so what I would say, for someone in that case, what I did is I actually built my business on the side because to me, my money game and my confidence wasn't at the point that it needed to be to just be like, all right, fuck it, I'm out. So I had to, when I was basically doing consulting on the side, I basically built my consulting business to cover all my basic bills. And in the job that I had at the time wasn't a bad gig. It was cool. I was fully remote. I was working with a really high level business coach, spent 2 years under her, also taught me a lot about business. So, one, I would say build whatever you're scared of doing, try it in like micro experiments. See if you actually like it, because I wasn't even sure if I was going to like consulting. Build it up on the side because you can make decisions differently and you can take risks that you wouldn't be able to take. And then the other thing is see if you can get an education on the job. So for me, I spent 2 years under a business coach who charges $1,000 an hour. So I was able to really learn so much about business before I even like open the doors of my business, and even in looking back, I now see too, something that really gave me a huge skill set leap ahead of everyone else is every job I've had has always had an education on the job. Like I have to be rapidly expanding my skill set and learning. And typically those are not easy jobs. You know, those are startup jobs. Those are small companies. I never worked in anything corporate. One, because I'm a rebel and I don't listen well. But two, like I want to learn, you know, I need that challenge. And yes, it was hard, but if you aren't ready to make that leap in anything, how can you learn on the job at somebody else's expense? It's something that I would really encourage someone who isn't ready to take that leap. And even as someone who obviously has made a practice, like I have a whole practice around expanding my comfort zone, it still made me want to throw up all over myself. You know, I didn't sleep for weeks. And I just, like, when I put my notice in to my boss at the time, you know, everyone outside of me was saying, oh, congrats. Like, oh, we could never do that. You know, go you. But like, yeah, we could never do that. And inside, I was just losing my freaking marbles, you know, just like, oh God, I'm going to be broke in like 4 days. So one thing that I would tell someone about entrepreneurship and how it kind of integrates with fear is that, you know, see if you can baby step it and see if you even like it. We get this idea of our goals and these big leaps as being really sexy. And I say, you don't have to always take the leap. You can just take like a step, see if you dig it. And also, even when you're on the right track, you're going to be terrified. Like, that's okay. I used to think that if I was afraid or I was really doubting myself, that I wasn't on the right track. And that's total bullshit. Like, things that even are really great for you, they are, you know, now, like, I don't know. I could never imagine somebody else signing my paycheck. Like, I'm not saying never, because I mean, if I got to pay the bills, I'll go get a job, but it'd be like temporary, but I just can't imagine going back to work for someone else. It's been so fulfilling. But it will bring up a lot of, you know, your money talk. It will amplify it. And so, and also here's one more third tip. I totally spaz out and go in different zones. But this was one of the biggest tools that helped me specifically with money. Because a lot of time when people have fears, it really kind of circles around two things. One is, how am I going to make money doing this? The other is, what are people going to think of me? So let's address the first one, which is, how am I going to make money doing this? Or how am I going to pay my bills? Or what if this goes, you know, tits up in like a week? I don't know. Is that going to make this X-rated? Anyway. So sorry. Anyway, again, this is me real life. So what I did is I created like a backup list of ideas of making money. And the thing that's really important about this is that you create it before you need it. You need to create it when you're resourceful. You need to create it when you're clear-headed. So so for example, for me, I was going full-time in my consulting business, and I started literally have a spreadsheet. I still have it today. I still add to it. And it's, if I need to pay the rent and I have no smackers and I need to make money ASAP, how can I make rent? So of course you start out with the obvious things. So like, I do marketing. So I'm like, I could run some paid traffic. I could do some copywriting. You know, you list out the obvious skills. Then in addition to that, anytime anyone says, hey, like, you're really good at that. What do you charge to do that? Add it to the list. So for example, one of my things was helping people write their resumes. I am like a total rock star at making people sound brilliant. It comes from being a writer. It comes from being a marketer, a copywriter. And I find resumes really fun. So like, writing resumes is on there, right? Also, this one made me laugh. I remember the day I added this, and it was drive for Uber. And I was like, you know, that actually sounds really enjoyable. Like, if because I think all day as a writer and a marketer and a creative, and I'm like, it'd be really great to earn money and just not have to think, you know, for a while. So what I would encourage, if you have a lot of thoughts around money and you're trying to take this big leap, one, you know, do it a little bit at a time, micro experiment, see if you can learn on the job, and then make a backup plan. Backup plans get a bad rap, and they're not a bad deal. So start making a list and just continuously add to it. I still go out of that. It's a year. I've never used it once, but it's literally bookmarked in my bookmark bar. So there's a few tips of how I kind of face fear around all my money talk. So
it's awesome. Not too long ago, a client of mine, like one of my best clients and I were having sort of a really like, being an entrepreneur, you go through these cycles where everything's great. And then all of a sudden you try something new and it doesn't go any way that you thought it was going to go. And we were both happening to go through it at the same time. And we sort of made this pact where it was like, I really like waiting tables. I waited tables through college. I'm really good at it. And I love it because you get to meet all these people. It's like my job now. I get to meet all these awesome people.
yeah,
I had fun with it and they're happy because most of the time I worked in good restaurants where the food was good.
totally.
So I told her, I'm like, okay, well, when all else fails, I'll go wait tables because I actually have a lot of fun with it. And she's like, okay, well, if all else fails, I'll go clean houses. Although I hate it, I'm really, really good at it. So we made this pact.
Like your escape hatch. Like,
yeah, it was like,
shit hits the fan. Here's my escape hatch to pay the rent.
Totally. And so we were so happy in that moment that it was like, we weren't alone. We were both like, took a crappy situation and transformed it into something like a pact, a bond between two people.
Yeah.
And we never needed to do that. That was actually a low point. And ever since then, it's just gotten better and better and better for our business.
Totally.
But we laugh and we tell people that story when we're together because people see us as doing so much and having all this success. And it's like, well, part of the reason is that we had an escape hatch and we felt so good about it. And then we could go on and do the things we wanted to do without living in fear over.
Another thing is you just need like a little bit of certainty, right? To get you through it. So that's the thing. So like fear is no certainty and certainty is comfort zone. And so if you can find a way to like have faux certainty, that can really help a lot. So for example, say that I'm out in public and I'm single. So I live in a city of beautiful, gorgeous people. It's like a freaking runway down the street. And I see beautiful men all the time. And so, you know, giving myself faux certainty, if I wanted, and this is how you could apply it to like everyday stuff. So if I see someone who's just like smoking hot and I'm like, I gotta go talk to this guy. I might come up with like a thing to say. I say the most ridiculous stuff, by the way. But if, you know, and then in the background, I'm like, if it doesn't go right, like, it's okay. I might just say this, or, you know, like it, like realizing it has nothing to do with me, or like maybe he has a girlfriend, or maybe he likes men. Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But like, if you can give yourself a little bit of certainty, or just being like, for me, a big one that I use to like brain trick myself is I focus on the process and not the outcome. So for example, in that same situation, the goal is not to get the guy's number or to ask him, get him to ask me on a date. The goal is to say hello. It doesn't matter what shit goes down after. Like, just say hello. So, you know, even for you guys, it might be like, okay, so I'm trying this new form of marketing in my business. I'm trying webinars, and it is just a total cluster. But the goal is like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to take it as far as I can, and I'm not going to give up when I don't know how to figure it out. And going into it, here's some of the challenges I might face, and here's how I might deal with it. But realize it's okay if it fails. I don't think we give ourselves enough permission to fail. And really, people doing awesome stuff, you know, people look at me like I'm doing awesome stuff all the time, and I am, but I'm also doing a lot of awesome things horribly first, or maybe not publicly. So know that what people show you on Facebook is just the highlight reel of their life, and don't compare their highlight reel to like yours, where you see all the uncut footage of all the dirty things going on behind the scenes and being self-conscious. There's a whole idea of like, don't compare. If life is a movie and, you know, everybody's creating their own, you get to see all the uncut footage. You get to see doubting. You get to see like, oh shit, I don't have to pay my rent. You know, you get to see the time that guy didn't call you. All those things. But on Facebook, you don't see anybody's dirty footage. Like, you just see like the movie moments. But the problem is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem is we compare our uncut footage to other people's highlight reel. And that's not fair. So when you're looking at other people's successes, you know, maybe like in a new marketing thing you're trying, you have to remember that you're comparing your beginning to their middle or their end, or you're comparing their highlight reel to your uncut footage. And that's not fair. And that will shut you down. So yeah, I just try to commit to the process versus the outcome in a lot of things. I try to experiment a little bit when I can. And I just try to learn to laugh at myself because I am ridiculous all the time. And if you can do anything with humor, like you can get through it. So
how did you develop, these skills that you talk about, just this incredible resiliency? That's how I see you as being.
I think it was a coping mechanism from my childhood. So, it's funny because everybody sees me now and they say, wow, you're so adventurous. You're so outgoing. You're so blah, whatever, fill that in. And I'm like, God, I was like the nerdiest, uncool, unlikely to be interesting or awesome person on planet Earth. I also think that's great because I was like an ugly duckling growing up and not cool at all. So I had to also develop personality, which is great. But actually, when I was born, I was given a 5% chance of living. I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, which is brain damage, and it's a movement disorder. So most people who have that spend their entire lives in wheelchairs. They're never expected to walk on their own, live on their own, go to college, have any like normalcy really. And so growing up, I spent my entire childhood learning how to walk. When everybody else went to recess, I went to therapy. And the thing is that you really have two choices in any situation. You're going to go through it either way. You can go through it, gracefully, or you can go through it like a freaking bozo. And so the way I've always chose to look at things is like, well, this sucks, but how can I just make the best of it? And, my childhood was really tough. I mean, they could probably make a lifetime special out of it. I always joke that people think getting over cerebral palsy, or not getting over it, but learning to live a normal life was, the hardest thing I've ever faced. And I'm like, actually, that's probably one of the easier things that I faced. And so for me, it was just, I had no choice, to really develop resiliency. But I think everyone has that. Everyone can choose to take responsibility for their life. They can choose to, find the good and grow through it, or they can choose to be a whiny little bitch. And you're going to go through it either way. Okay. Like, but with some humor, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this is happening to me. My life should be a sitcom. So yeah, I think that, and also like I was really uncool in college because what I did for fun was watch Tony Robbins videos, like, how'd you learn all this stuff? And I'm like, it's cool now, but trust me, I wasn't cool like 5 years ago. So it's okay to not be cool. If it's helping you further in yourself and grow and learn and whatever you dig, I mean, some people think I'm cool. Some people still think I'm like really weird. So, I mean, I am both, but some people like see me more as cool than weird. So yeah, anyways.
Oh, that's so fun. I mean, thank you for sharing that. And I've been wanting to say this the whole time. So you've got this incredible, if somebody's listening on the podcast, they can't see the backdrop of what's behind you, but you've got like this freaking awesome black and white. You're like color coordinated yourself. So you've got the white top and the black hair, and then your walls are black and white and your chair is black and white.
Literally my entire life is black and white, not figuratively, literally, I guess, I don't know how you say that. But, yeah, and that's actually funny in relation to wealth abundance is, so now I live in this really amazing space. I work from home a lot. So I wanted to really make it something that I was proud of. And I remember when I just signed a lease on the apartment I have, like made me want to throw up all over myself, because it's more than I ever thought I would pay for rent. I mean, I grew up living in a trailer. So having a place that has, I had to like key fob myself in. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like we have like free fitness classes and like, it's like, this place is ran very well. But I remember like, even I have, for those that are listening audio only, you can't see this, but there's a really big like mural statement wall behind me in my apartment. And I remember I hired one of my really good friends. He's a mural artist. Like I designed it. I was like, here's what I want it to look like. And I remember like when he gave me the quote of what it was going to cost, I literally like almost shat my pants. I was like, wait, I'm paying more for the mural than I did my furniture. And so it was really interesting though, to go through that and allow myself to create this space that I was proud of. And when I walk into this room every day, it's exactly what I want to see. Like, I don't want to be in another city working. Although I can travel and work, I'm like, this is where I'm excited to be. And I really had to give myself permission to spend money on the things that make me happy. And that was a big deal for me. And it's a beautiful space. I love it. And I'm a super like coordination nerd and really visual. So, you know, when it comes to abundance, one of my friends, his name is Tan. He runs AsianEfficiency.com. It's a productivity thing. And he talks about, I don't know if he created this or it's somewhere else, but it's called minimalist luxury lifestyle. And so basically it's imagine kind of minimalism with like a luxury spin. So I don't buy a lot of things, but when I do buy something, I buy exactly what I want. I buy the best quality I can find, and I enjoy every moment of it. So my house is very modern, but I chose every piece very specifically. And I didn't buy a whole bunch of extra things. And so that was a thing to me too. It's just like, buy exactly what you want and don't apologize for it. And you don't end up needing all these other things as well. So that's been really helpful for me as far as like just material possessions go.
I love it. I love it because it is a very conscious decision to be operating that way. And I'm going to just kind of explain my situation. So we're doing this massive remodel. We bought this house in Sedona, Arizona when we moved here, and gutted it. And now we're doing exactly what you talked about, like creating that space. So it's small. We came from a really big house and it was kind of opulent and a lot of detail. And this was about going super modern, super small house kind of thinking with, we have a son that lives with us and my daughter who comes on holidays and vacations. But the idea was to do exactly what we wanted, but see how small could we get away with living comfortably. And it's been such a fun journey, but the construction zone is actually behind me today. So
it's about to be a work of art. It's about to be a work of art. But I think that's really important is, you know, for me, it was like growing up really having, you know, growing up in poverty and you know, and to me, like, I don't see that as a bad thing. Like, a lot, you know, sometimes my mom will apologize for it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You taught me to value my shit. Like what, like I take so, you know, people see these pieces of their life, like growing up poor, or, you know, I had a stepfather who overdosed on drugs, like all these different things. And I don't think people realize that their weakness can also be like basically the catalyst for all their strengths. You know, for me, I became super mega miss independent because I had nobody to fall back on. You know, so people sometimes will apologize for, man, your childhood was a crap hole. And I'm like, yeah, but it gave me this ability to learn from, you know, to flex these muscles and take that challenge and learn to overcome it. You know, and ironically, you'll see these people that have these really, you know, cushy, I mean, congrats. Like, I want children to have the best possible childhood ever. But the ones you see up a lot of times having just a total shit show life or into like rehab and all these different things, a lot of times don't grow up with any struggle, you know? And so I think like struggle is a beautiful thing. We all think life is supposed to be easy. And I think the tough stuff is where we grow. And that's where all of our epiphanies happen. And there's where our character is developed. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be like grind zone all the time, but you have to like learn to find things in those episodes of your life and not expect that it's supposed to be easy all the time. Like, it's okay if things are a total cluster. That's life. You still have a good life, even if things are happening that suck.
I so agree. And my son and my daughter, you know, we didn't talk about it, but my childhood had a lot of challenges different than yours, but I suffered a great deal. And I'm an empath, and I could feel things going on, and I understood stuff at a level that really I was too young to understand. And it brought a lot of issues for me from a young age about worry and fear. And my children, I think I've worked really, really hard. They didn't grow up in that environment. So on one hand, I look at them and I think, well, they're not dealing with those challenges, so it must be so easy. But what I've seen watching kids grow up is that the struggles will come in one form or another, whether it be in social atmosphere versus at home problems, or, you know, depression or other things that we might not have a very clear understanding of why they happen. But I think that the shaping of a human being needs to have both sides of the equation. And even though a parent may want to protect their children from dealing with things, in the end, you think, well, how do they actually end up if they never face those challenges as a child? Because sooner or later, those things are going to happen. And it's just a question of having the resiliency and the skills to deal with them when they do come up, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the worst things you can do for your children is protect them from the world. And what I mean by that is, don't try to protect them from, and this is common sense here, like don't let them walk out in front of a bus, but don't try to protect them from all these different things. One, like you're not superhuman, but also don't worry about protecting them from the challenges. Teach them how to react, because that's the thing is if you can teach a child, okay, so what do I do when I'm stressed? How do I handle overwhelm? You don't have to teach them how to deal with writing that freaking that paper at the last minute, right? Like, oh, you screwed that one up. You failed college because you didn't figure out how to write that. But if you can teach them the skills that will help them react, I think that's a better education, and it really equips them more adequately to process life. Because the thing too is some of my greatest achievements came out of my hardest struggles. I've seen, a lot of protection around children, and there was some protection of children around my family. In my family, it was very different than me, but we've ended up on very different paths. And I think that one of the things that turned me into just absolute, completely ridiculously resilient person is I didn't ask for protection, and I had every right to have it because I was born 3 months early. I was given a 5% chance of living when I was born. So literally, I was this child that should have been coddled their entire life. And starting out, my family was very protective of me, but I quickly was just like, listen, I can do these things too. Like just simple stuff. Like, as someone who has cerebral palsy, like it's hard to walk for very long distances. You have very weak legs. And so like, they would be like, oh, can you go on this field trip? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going on this field trip. And, and so I think that a big part of who I am came from the hardest struggles. And so, yeah, I don't think protecting your children from the opportunity to mature and grow emotionally is actually protecting them at all. I actually think you hurt them. Now, disclaimer, I don't have any children, but I have some pretty strong opinions on how to raise little ones. So, yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. How can everybody find you, learn about what you're working on? Tell us what are some exciting projects that you've got going on now?
Cool. So I'm super easy to find on the internet. You just go to heykendra.com, HEYKENDRA. And one of the things I always love to give out to everyone, because as I talk about comfort zone challenges, I'm a wacko, so I think up all these different things, but not everyone is as weird as I. And so if you need some ideas of just some new ways to get outside your comfort zone, try new things, spice it up, I have a list of 100 of my favorite kind of enjoyable creative ones. And so it's like a cheat sheet that I give everyone, and you can just get that at heykendra.com/goodbye comfort zone. And that'll also get you on my email list. And 85% of actually what I write never goes public. It only goes to my email list. So it's a great way to kind of get some behind the scenes stuff too.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kendra, so much for being here. And
awesome. I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, I'm really easy to reach on the internet. And I respond to all my emails because I'm a nerd. So, and it really is me. Like sometimes people think like that there's minions or something, that like I have an assistant, and like, no, all my blog emails come from me. Like it's just me. It's very important that I actually connect with people one-on-one. So
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you too.